Oh, that's good. I'm gonna borrow Jason's because my computer isn't working. The first is call to order. I would like to remind everybody that our next meeting is a facilitated meeting, and you will be getting a questionnaire from our facilitators. So please fill them out. I know you've gotten a lot of questionnaires, but it will be helpful for them to be productive at our March meeting.
I think that's the responses are due by February 20th.
Okay, thank you very much. We haven't seen them yet, have we? Did they go out yesterday? They went out today. Today, okay. Public comment. Is there any public comment on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to board member comments. Do we have any board member? Catherine, I'm shocked.
I just want to remind everyone that on Sunday, February 22nd at 3 o'clock at Library Hall, Senator Dylan Roberts and Representative Megan Lukens are doing a legislative town hall update. So everyone is enthusiastically encouraged to attend.
Very good. John.
On February 18th, there's going to be a discussion on the stagecoach. There'll be a panel providing all the information one would like to know about the impacts of stagecoach. February 18th, 6 o'clock. Library.
Lou.
I got two quick notes. Reiterate what Kat said about our retreat on the 12th. That's from noon to 5 o'clock. And there is a survey, please complete it. You'll also be getting some additional background information between now and the next couple of days. Also, we had a development team orientation session. For those who took it, like some feedback in terms of effectiveness. If you have any questions, any comments, you'd like to see any changes.
Hey, any other board comment? All right, then we will move to the consent agenda. And I will just note that the financials were sent out separately. So hopefully you had a chance to review them. Are there any questions about the consent agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to pull the December financial statement section.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda without the December financials?
Motion.
I have a motion by Lou, and do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second by Catherine. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Paul, would you like to go over?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to comment that you received these only yesterday, so these are unaudited. The audit is currently going on. The finance team reviewed these briefly, just because we know we're going to do a deeper dive with the final audit presentation to the finance committee before our March 26th meeting, and then at our March 26th meeting for the board, we'll have a full audit exit with our CPA firm, Man and Associates. So, yeah, if everyone's comfortable voting on them with the day's review, I'm fine with that. I'm also fine tabling them until we have audited financials at the end of next month.
Okay, any questions of Paul or any comments about his suggestion?
I had a few questions, but I was planning to hold them off for the 26th, recognizing that everyone on the board has to have a chance to review them. So Paul, I would think whatever you recommend, whether we both as a preliminary or table, whatever you recommend as treasurer.
Do you want to make, is that a motion, Catherine? Table?
Suggestion is.
Yeah. I mean, I have. There was no major issues with what Sandy provided us before she left for Italy. So I'm comfortable approving these. I just wanted to make sure I recognized the only other day outside of the finance committee to review these. But I will make the motion to approve the unaudited financial statements as presented by Sandy Jacobs knowing that we're gonna have this coming back next month.
Yes, John.
When I met with Sandy and that the other day, well, that was the financials that I was looking at,
No,
or something different.
you asked for
Forecasting.
the forecast, and that'll be part of the March
Okay,
meeting.
thank you.
Okay, any other, do I have a second on Cole's motion?
I'll second it with a comment that knowing that we're gonna have a deeper dive and a deep discussion in March.
Okay,
Can I add that friendly, Cole?
yes. Or is Cole, do you accept that?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion by Cole and a second by Catherine to accept the December financials, subject to further review of the final with the audit in March. Any other questions? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, the financials are approved. The next thing is staff report. Jason, would you like to go?
Yeah, I just have a couple items to just update you on. The first is the open comms position that we have. We did advertise that job and it closed earlier this week. We got a couple of really good applications, so we're going to be going through the process of reviewing those, scheduling interviews, hope to bring somebody on around March-ish. And then secondarily, on the strategic plan, we've often updated our work plans, the board team level work plans in the first quarter. There's no change to the strategies or the goals themselves, but the kind of how you're getting things done, those change from year to year. There's been just a little bit of confusion about when's that supposed to be done by. We're sort of shifting and having that take a little bit longer time, primarily because of the retreat that we have upcoming. And secondarily, the fact that we're just midway through onboarding, a third of the board, with the new folks coming on board. So those work teams, we haven't set the new kind of rosters, if you will, for those teams. I imagine that will happen coming out of the retreat and following the onboarding. And then each of those teams can get into establishing their work plan. I know that like the finance team, as an example, gets extra credit for having already done it. Congratulations. There may be some tweaks to that as a result of the retreat. But I just want to make sure that that's clear for particularly the work team leads, that you're not behind in any way on the update of the strategic plan items. We have very good kind of tactics that roll over from last year, many of which are probably going to be repeated this year. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear on that, that you're not behind. We're kind of taking a little bit of time to make sure we go through the retreat and onboard the new board members before we set new kind of strategy moving forward.
Do you want to mention about the meeting next Tuesday?
Oh,
City Council?
yes. Thank you, Kathy, for reminding me. We are presenting to the city council on Tuesday next week. You guys are all welcome to attend. The intent of that is to share our annual report, what is currently existing in our strategic plan, and just kind of give them an update on the things that we do. And so this was requested by the city. However, it's also in our IGA that we do this on a regular basis. So we've sort of gotten out of the habit of doing it. Generally used to happen in the fall. And so I'll be presenting next week on Tuesday. I'm not sure where it is on the agenda, probably between 5 and 6, I would think. Unless you have something crazy in front of it.
But maybe 6:30.
Okay. Anyhow, so if you guys.
I'm not gonna say 11 o'clock at night.
Okay, before 11, after 6.
And actually that the idea specifies, I think we should be doing it in the fall during budget season. So hopefully we can, it's always so hard to get on city council's agenda. So you guys are so busy, but hopefully we can get back to the annual regular ones that we did for so many years.
We can and we will.
Right. Elliot.
Yeah, good afternoon. Just some operational and construction updates with Cottonwoods. So from a grant perspective, Emily and Elizabeth were able to get us another $100,000 for our Whitehaven Water and Sewer project. So big congratulations and thank you to them.
Oh, great.
And we also submitted an STR request to the city back at the end of January. So I'm hopeful that that is a viable option for us to kind of get the remaining funding needed for that project. And if so, would kind of put us on target to get started with that later this summer. So that's kind of how we're moving forward on that project. Just some updates from meetings with OPG and Mission Rock in the city. We presented to city and county on January 26th. As part of that, kind of noticed that I'll be taking the lead on a monthly inspection with the 3 Steamboat properties. As part of that, I actually walked reserves yesterday and spent some time over there kind of walking through the common areas. Utilized an app that they've given me access to that has checklists for the exterior of the building, for landscaping, for the common areas. It was pretty easy to use. You're able to take photos of stuff you saw, upload them to the app, and then write any sort of like narratives related to the various questions for each of the checklists. Verified with OPG that they received that and they have. So everything appears to be working like it should. I'm planning on getting over to Alpenglow and Anglers next week to do those monthly inspections. And I know that they have the regional for Mission Rock got up here yesterday afternoon and is spending time in Steamboat today through Friday. And then their new kind of quality control person for OPG is coming up today and spending the next couple of days here in Steamboat. But I happy to report kind of everything was looking good, just from kind of a cleanliness and kind of presentation standpoint. And so anyway, we'll continue to monitor that and report back to the board on kind of how things are looking and things are going there. So
Yeah, can I ask a quick follow-up on that?
Yep.
Is this app is that the new template for the checklist or?
correct. Yeah, it's I was just pulling it up here. It's called Go Audits. And they've essentially given me access to that, and it pulls up not only the Steamboat properties, but all the properties in the OPG portfolio. And then you select the property you're at and then whether you're doing common areas, exterior or landscaping. And then it generates a list of questions through the checklist that you go through and answer yes, no.
Can anyone who wants to visit any of the properties have access to that app?
I don't believe so. It's like a licensing thing, as I understand it, from talking to Matt at OPG. So like they had to set me up as a user and there's a monthly fee with it. But I'd be happy to pull the reports and forward them, to you and Dave if you want to see them or share those with council or something.
Yeah, I think that would be
Okay.
a good idea.
Okay, absolutely.
And the tenants have their own sort of version of that same reporting platform and thing.
I am not sure if the tenants are using this. My understanding was it's more for like the regional and Mission Rock people, but the portal is kind of the residents, the actual like property portal is the residents kind of way to report things or work orders, different stuff that they're seeing. And then OPG has then created that it's almost like a spreadsheet document that we can provide to tenants if there is in progress by Mission Rock on certain things. So yeah, they've got a couple different avenues for owner tenants and people living at those properties to report issues.
So to clarify, if somebody, if a tenant brings up an issue, will it eventually end up on that app that you're mentioning that you have access to? Or
No,
is that
it would either go through the portal or kind of the communication protocol we've discussed. If for some reason there's not action on an issue they've reported either in person or through the portal, and say they reach out to the city or they reach out to YVHA about that, there's another kind of form that OPG has created that we can send them that just goes directly to OPG with a list of like whatever the issues is, so they can follow up with Mission Rock on those items.
Great. So the app is more like routine things.
Correct. These like monthly inspections that we've agreed to do at the properties, in addition to the OPG and Mission Rock managers that will be on site.
Great.
Elliot, my understanding when we met with that during the open houses was at the portal, a tenant could see something, take a picture of it and report it. And then Mission Rock, then when they corrected it, they would show completed. So there could be a way that Mission Rock and or OPG could say, what are our open issues? Is that still correct?
Yeah, yes, and part of that is like our, so we've also implemented a bi-weekly meeting with OPG and Mission Rock, and we had our kind of first bi-weekly meeting last Friday. And then our monthly meetings are at the end of the month. And they've committed to giving us a copy of that open list so that by that Wednesday before the Friday meeting, so we can review anything that's outstanding, kind of be prepared and, come to that meeting with, asking questions or follow up as to why things are being addressed. Yeah.
Mentioned 3 properties. I thought we had 4.
So the 3 properties with Overland Property Group that we've developed are the Reserves, Alpenglow, and Anglers. And then Sunlight Crossing is the one we did with Gorman and Company.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Any other questions of Elliot?
Other items on the report or is these?
Yeah, I have just a few other things, Cottonwood stuff. We've got our first HOA board meeting next week to approve our budget and our CC&Rs. We have internet being installed the following week at the property in both buildings. We've received administrative approval on our final plat for Cottonwood, so that's in progress and is currently being circulated for signatures. And then we have owner training with Steamboat Association Management coming up here towards the first part of March. Later on, I'll just go ahead and let you know there has been a delay in our TCO for Building 2. That's been pushed back to March 10th now. That's due to some fire dampers that were just recently caught and were kind of a longer lead item. So that's one of the things that's kind of primarily pushing the TCO delivery date back about a month. But it appears that those are going to be here, it looks like the end of next week, and will be installed kind of the end of February and tested and kind of buttoned up. So based on everything I'm getting back from Houseman, that March 10th date is still good for Building 2 being delivered. And then Building 1 got pushed back a week to March 27th, just because with the delays in Building 2. Yeah.
Just for everyone's awareness, how TCO, or how we're trying to manage TCO with the lottery is we've obviously also had the lottery is date is the first one is set. But what we'll do is we'll watch how that TCO is progressing before we start putting buyers under contract so that their under contract timeline and financing deadlines don't start ticking before we have more certainty around TCO. So we're watching that closely.
Yep. And I continue to update live daily as I hear stuff. So
One other thing on the HOA, the budget for the HOA,
yes.
where is that?
As far as like a dollar amount or
Or when will that be available?
well, I actually just sent the draft budget to Dave earlier today.
Okay.
And that's going to be approved at our first HOA meeting next Thursday. Essentially where we've landed is for 1 bedroom, unit. It's about $340 a month of HOA dues. And for a 3-bedroom unit, larger square footage, it's in the like $500 a month range. So kind of well below what we had initially anticipated for HOA dues. And a lot of that has been driven by the insurance. Got a really favorable quote on that, or Steamboat Association Management did. And so I think we're all very happy with kind of where that's landed.
That's gonna come into each person's budget, 30% for their mortgage. That HOA is gonna have to be factored into that.
Correct. Yeah. And that's part of the, I forget what exactly it's called, but we looked at kind of what the AMI price was and then deducted the PMI and the HOA and then landed on essentially like what that monthly mortgage payment would be for various buyers of different AMI categories.
Yeah, to be clear, we set prices utilizing 30% front-end DTI threshold as our like guide. However, the deed restriction does not require people to spend no more than 30%. So there is some flexibility amongst the buyers. They're in a financial position to spend 33 or 34%. And they can get lending at that point, which is often the case. They have that tool available to them. So with these going down or being less than what we had sort of modeled, that's good news. They now have more buying power.
That might be beneficial to send that budget to the entire board, so everyone has them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then Robin's back with the team. She's been helping with real estate stuff, getting web pages updated. So there's some information in my report about that. I know this has taken a little while, but there's also some recent information in there about our Hilltop project and kind of where Emily is with that. So I won't belabor that too much. Let me know if you have any questions with that. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, just the big updates with Cottonwoods Construction is our new TCO for Building 2. And we've gotten all the punch lists done for the units, for the garage, for the stairwells. And so just working on scheduling a new time to get back over there and walk that and make sure everything's been completed. So those are my updates.
Thank you.
Elliot,
Yes.
what's the timeline on getting that red line version to the USFS, to the Forest Service on the Hilltop property? And I understand they're waiting on us to get the red line, so
It's looking like next week.
we should get that to them next week. Okay,
Yep, that's kind of the timing we're working off of right now.
right.
Any other questions of Elliot? If not, we'll move along to our next agenda item. And that is resolution 2026-002, a first supplemental budget for the development fund. You want
Yeah, so
Andy's not.
do my best, Sandy Jacobs. So the purpose agenda item is to essentially transfer some money from the development fund to the Whitehaven fund. Whitehaven, as you know, is an enterprise in and of itself. The $25,000 is within the sort of statutorily allowed amount of money to be delivered into that fund. And we're doing that just so that we can have a little bit more fund balance in that project that obviously has a huge infrastructure project on the horizon. We continue to deal with issues with the water and sewer system there because it's super old. And this whole project is intended to fix all of that. But in the interim, we wanted to make sure that that fund balance had cash on hand to deal with any emergencies or use that money to help pay for the actual construction project. So this is essentially the maximum that we can provide without jeopardizing the enterprise status of the fund. And so it's just a little bit of help for that fund coming from our YVHA tax revenue, to make sure that that community is well taken care of.
Moreover, I mean, we talked about it at the board with budgeting season or like that, allocating funds and the discussion of, well, do we just allocate funds to allocate it or do you do it for a reason? And we discussed at the finance team that, you know, establishing a reserve account for a property that has struggled to maintain one is a good use of that allocation over and keeping it. The goal is to keep that as operational reserve capital, not project costs. I mean, it's a $4 million project, $25,000 is kind of a drop on the river, but we're hoping that the project cost can be sourced in other ways. And the 25,000 is the seed money for operationally going forward that rents will then add to over time.
How much money is in the development fund?
The development fund, you talking about cash on hand or, yeah, cash on hand is about 5 million.
And I'd just like to add on to that. I know that all the previous board members heard me say this during budget season, but you know, it's hard to build affordable housing. I think it's even harder to preserve affordable housing. And we know that Fish Creek Mobile Home Park has got a $1 million ballpark electric coming up. We've got huge renovation. We're hoping to do at Hillside. And even with the 4% tax credit, we need to keep the rents where they are. Hopefully, I mean, those are very low income families. So I actually say, I'll say it again. I know the previous members heard it already, but I think we should do the standard max investment into our properties every budget season, because we know it's hard to preserve those low income houses, those low income residences. So I enthusiastically support this call, and I wish we had the same supplemental resolution for Fish Creek and Hillside.
John.
I've spent a fair amount of time there with some friends, and some of the internal sewage and waterworks within the buildings are having a few problems. I'm wondering if the upgrade of the water sewage, will they be able to handle that? Because there's a different pressure, a different whatever going on. So has that been checked before?
Yes, so with the lines coming off the water mains, there's gonna be a pressure reducing valve and a meter. And we can adjust that pressure reducing valve down to meet the kind of pressure within the house, the
Okay,
need for
great.
the showers and tubs.
See that blow up in the house.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good point because we also had to deal with that when we replaced the water and sewer at Fish Creek Mobile Home Park. And we identified that same concern and used that same methodology there. Because you're right, if you take something that's been working with very low pressures and is 50 years old and you put brand new high pressure water in there, you're gonna have a lot of problems. So we've already, thanks for bringing it up. We had that.
Any other questions about the first supplemental? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve 2026-002, the first supplemental budget.
Motion to approve.
Dan, did you
So motion.
so moved? I'll give Dan the first and
Okay.
Lou the second. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? I should acknowledge, Sonia, you're on the line and you are representing Angelica, so you are the voting member for the county, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and I'm sorry I was a few minutes late. I had my camera off because I was eating, but I am here and listening.
Okay, very good. Are there any other voting members online?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you.
In general, who else is online?
Is Leah online?
Yes.
We have a few staff members, former board member Leah Wood, former board member Allison Brody. And the rest are staff who are either in the room or back at home base.
All right. Next item, you want to take that out or?
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that if you're okay with that.
All right, I'll let you.
Yeah, just for kind of ease of rolling through some maybe easier items. I'd like to kind of skip to items 9 and 10, if that's okay with the board. Those are both surety items related to Mid Valley Phase 1. We can take those one at a time, but this is more kind of ordinary business before we get into kind of updates on what's going on with Cottonwoods in general.
All right. The first is, I'm gonna let Elliot explain why we're posting surety. Not just why, but also the process on the one with the city and 2 with Mount Warner Water.
Yeah, so as part of the need to wrap up Cottonwoods Phase 1 and get the appropriate approvals that we need with both the TCO and also the sign off for the public improvements that we made. There's a need to post surety and have a letter of credit for the private improvements that haven't been completed so far for Phase 1 of Cottonwoods. Those items are mostly related to landscaping things that just haven't been able to be installed yet and won't be installed until later this summer. In addition, there's a few other kind of critical improvements that have been called out by the city as part of the approval process, and those are carports, trash enclosure, the signage that's needed. There's also a turnaround or a hammerhead that's been requested by the fire department along the core trail if they have to use that in order to put out a fire or rescue someone from one of the buildings. There's also a new access gate that's been installed off Highway 40 for the fire department to access the core trail. And so those things are in motion, but will be at kind of various stages of completion. And so the first item, the surety for the improvements agreement with City of Steamboat Springs, covers those items that I just discussed. And basically what we're doing is we're transferring some money to a local bank into a CD. And then with specifically the city items in the improvement agreement, we then have this agreement that we've drafted. George has reviewed it with Kim Weber and Kelly Douglas over at the city planning department. And we're going to transfer that CD to the city and they'll hold on to it. Assignment until all of these items are completed later this summer. July is the kind of current ETA that Houseman's given us on the landscaping will be the last items going in. With the public improvements for Mount Warner Water, they have requested, because there was a delay in getting those inspected prior to November 1st, they've requested an additional year warranty on those items. And so the surety and letter of credit for those is to cover an additional year of warranty over and above what has been extended by Houseman and the contractor who did all the work. So that money will also be moved into a CD with a local bank and held with them for a year to satisfy this additional 1-year warranty on the public improvements for the water and sewer infrastructure at Cottonwoods.
Any questions? Yes, Kathy.
Elliot, so what's our financial risk on this? I mean, what happens if, is Houseman supposed to put in the landscaping or? So what if they just don't do it? Are we just on the hook for it? I mean.
So the surety is for, if Houseman, the developer, whoever, jointly us, don't put in the critical improvements, for example, with the city then takes that money from the CD and does it themselves.
So what control do we have over our development partners getting this done? Or what is our, I mean, what happens if they have more cost overruns and they just don't do it? I mean, I mean, the question really is, what's our financial risk on this? I mean, do we think, what's our recourse if they don't get it done?
Well, it's in the scope of the contract, so.
Right.
So we'd have legal recourse to get them to pay us back?
I mean, if Houseman just says we're not gonna do it, well, they have a contractual obligation to do so. So yes, we would have claims against them.
And what about the warranty situation?
As far as what?
Like they're saying they want an additional money for warranty, I guess, right? So if something breaks in that period, I mean, do we have any recourse or are we on the hook for it?
Yeah, I mean, we would be responsible, and that's why we're posting the surety to make any repairs necessary to address, a sewer line or water line that's failed. And the Mount Warner Water is making that like a mandatory condition in order for them to sign off on the public improvements for us to get a TCO.
Again, Catherine, I'd say with respect to the Mount Warner water issue, yeah, and so when we use we use it kind of loosely because it is although the housing authority itself is posting the surety, the joint venture entity is responsible for it. If something was wrong with the piping or the hydrants or whatever, it would depend upon what the reason for that defect was, but there certainly would be potential claims against someone, houseman, subcontractor, whoever, with respect to that. The city and Mount Warner don't want to be worried about who, they just want someone to give the money, and we've agreed to do so.
No, and I just recognize that. I just wanted we haven't batted 1,000 on these guys, I was just wondering, why are we putting this up instead of our development partner, since they're developing?
It's required by the city. If there's a unfinished work, then the city has you create an improvements agreement for the unfinished work. And they charge I think they charge an extra 15 or 20%. 15. So if it's $1 million, they're gonna, the letter of credit's gonna be $1,150,000.
But
Houseman does have, we currently have, I don't know the exact number, but it's somewhat in excess of $1 million in retainage that is security to make sure that these items are completed.
to answer your question directly though, Catherine, in normal circumstances, yes, the developer itself would be posting this. This was a concept that was contemplated in the approved by the board global agreement in October. That document is not executed by either party. And I've suggested, and especially with the TCO being delayed out till next month, that this money do not be actually posted to the city until we have definitive agreements with all our partners with respect to everything. And I think we'll talk more about some of those ancillary issues a little later. But yes, this is not the normal course of action.
Okay, so I guess, can we still approve this with the add, should we approve this supplemental then with the add-on that those other items are taken care of, or?
Yeah, we need you to approve this resolution so that we can actually transfer the money and deposit it into the local bank. So that sets the stage for us to execute on the surety. I mean, this is a mission critical component to getting a TCO, which is mission critical to selling units. And so the reason why we're doing this is we wanted to have control over making sure it got done.
Okay, so I guess the financial, if for some reason our development partners don't get this done for every reason, we would then use this surety money to get it paid for, and then use whatever legal ramifications we have to get reimbursed from our partners. Okay.
Any other questions? All right, then we'll take these separately. The first one, 2026-003, is the $1.4 million in surety to the city. In the form of a CD pledging or assigning. Assigning. Do I have a motion? I have a set first by Mark
Second.
and a second by Lou. Any further discussion on the motion?
George, do we need to add anything to the motion for your saying how you wanted to wait till the TCO was firmer, or do you think we should just approve it as?
You as a board are authorizing the housing authority to do this. You're not effectuating it. So if something changes and we don't want to do this in the proper time, the staff will just not do it.
Okay, so we still have that control over when their TCO is fixed and such.
Correct.
Any other questions? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
I will abstain with my conflict of interest in the Yampa Valley Bank.
All right, motion carries unanimously except for Cole abstaining. The next item is 2026-004, and that is the
$61,000.
to Mount Warner Water for a 2-year warranty pledge. Is there any questions on that?
I just think it should be noted, it's not guaranteeing in addition to guaranteeing the work that's already in place, it's also a guarantee that a bore underneath Highway 40 is completed to tie the water system on the east side of the highway to the water system on the west side of the highway to make a loop. Which is an expensive venture, and personally, I'd like to go back to the water district and just say, once you consider sharing this with the, since it's for housing, but at the moment, it's guaranteed. At the moment, they've requested that, and it was part of the guarantee for them.
I think that might be in a separate document.
I thought this.
It's part of, in order to get a TCO from Mount Warner, it's posting the surety, the additional year of warranty. It's also signing this agreement with them of extending the bore under the highway.
We have not finalized that agreement with them. And so that's a separate thing that needs to be done with.
The agreement's separate, but isn't this separate letter of credit also guaranteeing that?
No,
It's not.
it's just for the stuff that's been.
Apologize for being confused.
It's all right.
I have a question.
Yes,
Is this standard practice?
sorry,
It's standard practice here?
as far as with Mount Warner?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're installing public water and sewer. So the utility district rarely ever actually installs their own water and sewer system. They make the developer or whoever install it, and then they make you provide a warranty for a period of a year or two in this case. So that there's not any, with sewer, there's not any settling or something along those lines that would change the slope of the sewer, or if there's any, issues with leaks in the, any construction related warranty type issues usually will poke their heads up in the first year or two. And so that's why they provide that, so that they're not on the hook for fixing that problem. They've got sort of teeth in you to make sure that if there is a problem, they're like, listen, you got to fix it. Like, if you don't fix it, we'll just take your own money and do it for you. It's unusual that is ever the case, that they will actually pull that money. Whenever for the city, we once pulled somebody's surety.
With the same caveat that usually it is the actual developer and not a owner of the developer, one of them.
I think this is pretty specific to Mount Warner. I don't think this is very specific to like,
And Morrison does.
but it's fine, right? Like, that's why I was asking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just for clarity, I mean, the subcontractor who installed all these improvements is extending a warranty, a year warranty on the work. They've just asked for an additional year of warranty, so essentially 2 years, which is what this $161,000 is.
Yep, makes sense. So if there's any problems, we hope that they show up in that first year.
Right.
First 11 months.
All right, any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion for 2026-004.
Move.
We have a motion by Mark and a second by Lou. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I'll abstain again for the same conflict.
And Cole is abstaining. All right. The next item. Wanna?
All right, so we're staying off order for a bit and I'd like to move into the discussion of Brown Ranch, and then we'll circle back to Mid Valley and Cottonwoods. As it relates to the Brown Ranch next steps, I know this is something that a few board members wanted to specifically talk about. Emily was kind enough to put together a little bit of a slide presentation that would help maybe organize the conversation, but it's at your discretion whether you would like that or not. Just before we get into this, we didn't necessarily have anything particularly prepared other than sharing with you guys the scope that the city has approved for phase 2, 3, 1.6 of the community deliberation process.
The city's seen this governance scope, have you guys?
I'm sorry, what was
I
that?
don't think the city council, my understanding was that staff was gonna bring back the governance scope for council to review and approve.
Last Tuesday, we went over our goals,
I know.
and one of those goals was around phase 2 of Brown Ranch, and we had a discussion about the governance piece of it.
Okay.
And that is the piece that is going to be a recommendation is being put together on that piece.
You haven't seen that recommendation yet, and is that what we're seeing here?
I can clarify.
Yeah.
So what you have in your packet is a scope of work that I believe has gone through city contracting. It was based on the guidance
Yes.
that you gave staff a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, but as far as the actual governance piece, nothing's been determined on that yet. It's still in the process of the membership of that governing board. Hasn't even been totally determined at this point.
Well, maybe we should hear Emily's presentation because I do have a lot of questions on this.
Yeah, I can try to get this done in 5 to 10 minutes to save plenty of conversation time for y'all. Okay, so I'm just gonna, this background is similar to what was in the communication form in your board packet, but for the benefit, particularly for newer board members, just a very quick history on the Brown Ranch property. So in August 2021, YVHA received a donation enabling YVHA to purchase the Brown Ranch property. From 2021 to 2023, we underwent an extensive multi-layered community engagement process to create the community development plan, which involved a 20-person steering committee, 6 different focus teams, targeted outreach, particularly to youth and harder to reach community groups, Latinx and Spanish-speaking community members in particular, and then combined all of that with technical study to create the community development plan. November 2022, city voters passed the STR tax for affordable housing. In 2023, YVHA and the city negotiated the annexation agreement through the BRAC process, which is something that people will probably hear about in this conversation. So I wanted to specifically highlight that. In autumn 2023, the city council approved the annexation agreement. And then there was a subsequent election where voters approved 75% of the STR tax to allocate specifically to the Brown Ranch property for the purpose of developing affordable housing at Brown Ranch. And then from January to March 2024, in response to the city council's approval of the annexation agreement, community members petitioned that agreement and gathered enough signatures to send it to a vote. And that vote occurred in March of 2024, where voters rejected the annexation. And then pretty immediately after that, in April 2024, city council met, and that was the launch of what we're now calling the community solutions process, which involved an RFP to find a contractor to guide the community through these next steps, which I'm gonna talk us through. So the reason Jason and I had confusion about the names of the phases is because there was actually what we're calling a phase 0, which was civic or community builders was the entity identified by the city. It's a nonprofit based in Glenwood Springs. And so they did phase 0 was a situation assessment, which involved mostly interviews by people close to the project and the annexation process to create an assessment of sort of where we are and if there's a path forward. Then from March to September 2025, that was the phase 1 of the community solutions process, which was another sort of multi-layered community engagement process that included a deliberation and stewardship team which had 40 members with sort of broad perspectives and experience on that particular development proposal, Brown Ranch. It also included the project collaboration team, also known as PCT Plus, which was just some city, county, YVHA staff, mostly talking through nuts and bolts stuff to guide the DST. And then there was broader community engagement that included small community conversations, sometimes hosted in people's living rooms, other times at coffee shops, just trying to be like meeting people where they're most comfortable to facilitate dialogue, particularly among groups that have different perspectives, as well as sort of broader community presentations. That wrapped up in September. Community Builders and Civic Canopy, who is another community engagement nonprofit that is subcontracting with community builders. They presented to city council, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but the basic findings were that 1, we have a big housing problem, and 2, the Brown Ranch is part of a suite of solutions to that housing problem that the community should continue to, to try to see if there's a path forward to make something happen on that property. There was a bit of a pause in work from September to January that was primarily based on just a pause in availability of funding tied to a grant that the city has that is funding the community solutions process. And so we used that time to scope out phase 2. And so in January of 2026, the city council saw that scope of work. I sent it to the board of directors, so y'all had a chance to read it, but not to discuss it as a group. So I think that's important to note. The sort of result of that conversation is the scope that you have in your packet, which is an affirmation that we do want to proceed with the governance part of that scope of work, and then have kind of further conversation about what community engagement and any sort of technical study of the site will involve going forward this year. So the primary outcomes of the phase 2 scope are to create a revised governance structure for decision-making related to the Brown Ranch property, to outline a roadmap for annexation with some key milestones, to identify the necessary components that a next Brown Ranch plan and annexation proposal will have to include, and then a community engagement plan, including the role of that 40-member DST group that we had in phase 1. So we're now calling it PCT plus because I had mentioned that PCT group, the project collaboration team, was initially composed of just city, county, and YVHA staff, and it's now being expanded to include elected officials and or YVHA board members. So it's an expanded membership, and I anticipate that the kind of composition of that group will probably change after the first meeting or two, sort of depending on how conversations go. But all that to say that in the next couple of weeks and months, these are the conversation topics that the PCT Plus will discuss, starting with governance structure. So these are not all of the questions in the scope were included in your packet. I just pulled out a few. So I just want to highlight some of the questions, including how will governance of Brown Ranch be shifting? Currently, all decision-making related at least to a development proposal sits with the YVHA Board of Directors. And then with annexation, that decision-making is with the city of Steamboat Springs. Who will need to have a hand in decision-making? How will decisions be made? How can governance better support collaboration between multiple entities that have a role in the final design? Outcomes and outputs. So what needs to be included in the next Brown Ranch plan and annexation proposal? What level of planning and design does the process need to deliver to get to annexation? Design and decision-making and community involvement, including what level of influence can people participating in the process expect to have? We want to have really clear expectations for people. And then of the many topics at the table, which decisions or types of decisions are suited for public involvement versus more technical study? Integrating technical needs and capacity. So how can the process incorporate needed technical work and guidance in a way that is efficient and understandable and provides clarity? Pacing and timeline. What's the timeline for annexation? And then also, how do we balance the sense of urgency that all of us who are working to deliver affordable housing solutions to the community feel deeply, but also with an intentional and sustainable pace that the broader community feels comfortable about? Resources and funding, what resources are available? That includes time, expertise, and of course, money. How should we look at financing future phases? I think that mostly relates to the actual sort of community solutions process and planning, but then could expand beyond that to doing actual work on the site. And then if there is going to be a phase 3 scope, the PCT Plus would be involved in scoping that. So it's not just staff, but it's kind of a broader conversation. So yeah, and we're going to get through all of that starting in February or the end of February and through July of 2026. So right now, this is the proposed membership of the PCT Plus group. As I mentioned, I think it's flexible and subject to change, kind of based on initial conversations, who's at the table, who's missing. But this is my understanding of who's involved at this point. And now I will leave it to you all to ask questions and or discuss.
Can I make a couple comments about this?
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as the membership is concerned, that is not in a final state at this point in time. And there's also a lot of discussion about having several DST members also involved in that process. As far as, can you go back to that last slide with all of that one?
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff there. And there is no defined timeline on accomplishing all of that at this point in time. The thing that has been agreed to is that we are going to move forward on the governance structure and creating a decision-making structure that works far more effectively. I shouldn't even say far more effectively, that works effectively, dissimilar to the old BRAC process that we had. So all the other stuff on there is dependent upon governance is the starting point, and then they will work on what are their outcomes and deliverables that they want to accomplish. Scenario planning is a big piece of that. But the time frame around all that is dependent on a number of things. We also have other projects, housing projects that we want to focus on. And the priorities around this and the resources the city has to bring to bear on this are limited. And so beyond the governance piece and what happens after that is dependent upon these other priorities and the level of resource allocation that we can give to it. And also to, in a very real sense, our water capacity out on the west side of town. And if we truly only have 200 to 400 EQRs available until we either lower redundancy, which is not necessarily a good thing to do, especially when you have a shortage of snow, and or making improvements to our current facilities, but then building a new water treatment plant, which is, from what I've seen, somewhere between 5 and 7 year process and $100 to $150 million. That is a wide range that needs to be worked on. So, I think the notion is ideally where we've kind of come out on this is governance. Yes, we're going to put together that. And then that group can start working on some of these scenario options. And those scenario options probably revolve around, can we put into place smaller annexation? And I'm not getting into what it looks like, but a smaller annexation that could utilize the capacity maybe that we have from a water standpoint. The time frame on all that, though, is, it's up to not only coming up with what are the scenarios or what are the options or which one does the community value, then we have to get into an annexation and all of that. So, all of that is out there, but the time frame around it is up in the air.
Well, in terms of water, John Snyder was saying they're doing a test valuation for the wells on the Yampa River. Have you seen that result yet?
No.
Okay, because that's a big difference in redundancy and analysis available. Okay.
And I mean, that is one of the biggest questions is what is the accuracy of the information that we have on water availability? There's a lot of upside in Fish Creek, for example. You talk about the upside there, but the upside there is not just a straight line through the year. You take the middle of the summer when all the irrigation systems are running full blast and everybody's washing their cars and everything, that thing peaks way up there, and you do not have much redundancy at all at peak demand times.
Plus the peaks are in the summer and the winter. We can get by on the wells just for a little bit of time in the fall when we reduce our water, but it's barely.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of complexity. I've looked at the system a lot. I've worked with John quite a bit on it. I've given him an outline of what I think would be a prudent course. There's capacity. What we don't know, the issue is what don't we know about Mount Warner's system? And that's a big question.
And that is a piece of what this governance group is going to have to work on, along with other technical stuff. I will just say, though, the city is committed to moving forward on Brown Ranch. We just don't want to let it aside. We want to move forward on it. And if we could get to the point of putting in a 200 to 400, let's say, just throwing numbers out, something out there to start. I think we'd all, most of us would look very favorably on that, but you get into what is it going to take from a resource allocation perspective to even get there versus some of the other things that we have coming up this year, which are, in our view, lower hanging fruit.
Hey, Kathy?
So, I just want to acknowledge before we get into this that this is like rabbit hole central.
Yeah.
And like this could be a 5-day conversation. So I think just from the purpose of we've got 30 minutes to talk about this. I think the governance structure conversation is, from what I'm hearing from you, is the first and foremost thing that we need to tackle. Like, how many units and what's the amount of water, all of that, it's very much downstream of the governance structure conversation. So if we can use our time to focus on that, that's probably the most effective conversation we can have today in the 20 minutes we have left.
Been very patient, so I'm gonna jump in. So first I want to thank Emily and staff for working on this. I really want to thank everyone who's on the DSD committee, I know everyone spent a lot of time on that. And, but I'm looking forward. So, my thoughts on this are, it's been 2 years since the election. I hear from a lot of people in the community, what are you guys doing on Brown Ranch? And our answer is we're doing a lot of meetings. We're not doing anything. So just a suggestion, city council people, because I want to have a partnership. The Housing Authority cares deeply about that. But perhaps as just a thought, instead of setting up this process that looks so familiar to the BRAC process to me, perhaps what if we did something like this and looked and did a process like the school board when they lost their big election on wanting to move the high school. And they said, okay, they got back together, came back to the little one, presented ideas to the community, stakeholdered it, and moved forward. What if, as a different governance process, the city were to say, you know, you've got brilliant minds at the city to actually put together what is the city's capacity for units in Brown Ranch, including all the little detail, all the details that are important, water, city services, everything. This is how many units that could be built at Brown Ranch today, not in 2029, but today, and that the city could absorb and would not be additional cost to the taxpayers. If the city got that amount, then perhaps maybe use the structure we currently have, such as the incredibly brilliant minds we have in the Housing Authority Development Team, like Lou and Mark, and Andrew and Dan, and all this talent we have, to then start putting together, you know, city council, whoever else, start putting together some development ideas we could then stakeholder to the community. And then, you know, whether it's a Riverside, like out by the church, but I'm just thinking this, I don't want to, you know, steal Dave's line. This seems like process over progress. The big question is, how many units can the city absorb in West Steamboat right now? That number, and then we need to decide how to move forward. I just think, I mean, I read the packet, you're talking about a charter and bylaws. I mean, we've got the Housing Authority, we've got the City Housing Department, which you can say it's however the staff. Now we're gonna add a new housing structure. I mean, how many different committees do we need in a town of 12,000 people when we're talking about a Bryn Gray size development or smaller? So I read this, Steve, and it's, as I said, it seems to me, I think it's time for us to roll up our sleeves and start getting to work. And if we need to hire a consultant to get the city and the Housing Authority to work together, I think we've got a bigger problem we have to discuss. And I don't think we need that. So, as I said a year ago, Kathy, I said, we want to go along with the process, but I think we as a community can do better than this. Is my friendly thoughts.
Sonia has her hand up.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate you guys letting me jump in, and I acknowledge that I have not been an active participant for quite some time. However, we do talk about housing authorities, plural, quite a bit in Routt County, and there are now multiples. And how do we empower them and make sure that we are behind them, pushing them forward to do good work? So I am a little confused about the idea of some kind of governance structure of Brown Ranch. Just to put it in very simplistic terms, I guess I was under the impression that what we were talking about here was an annexation, and just as Catherine said, a situation in which the development would be scaled down to, one, make sure that it's not inconsistent with the desire of the community, which I believe the community was concerned about seeing too much growth at once. I'm going to put a pin in that and say I recognize that, building out infrastructure at once is cost effective, but community doesn't want to see that. So, the idea that a certain number of units could be supported through an annexation process, and then the housing authority would be the quote unquote developer, just as it does with its other projects, was sort of where the county thought we were headed with this. So if that's not the case, help me understand why we need another kind of governance model. I mean, we have the Yampa Valley Housing Authority, we got the South Route Housing Authority, Hayden has a housing authority. I guess the city now has some kind of panel for STR funds or something. Like what added value is this new governance structure going to bring, and who's going to decide what it looks like?
Well, everything you said, Catherine, and Sonia too. Some of us have debated for well over a year about moving forward on a smaller annexation and moving forward and seeing what resources were needed in terms of water and utilities and everything else. And could we butt it up to the Glen, and, you know, all these discussions that have gone. And the bottom line is that that didn't go anywhere a year ago. And now this governance structure is meant to create a group of people who are going to take this forward and recommend scenarios that potentially the community would, or a scenario potentially that the community would support. Everybody thinks that's a much smaller project. Everybody thinks that's a smaller annexation. And the question is, who's going to lead that project? And the recommendation that was put forth here was that be a group of people that included the city, that included the housing authority, that included the county, and that potentially included a couple members of the DST to take this and move this forward. Now, I know what you're thinking is that, okay, so you've taken it away as 100% housing authority just to manage and lead this project. And that has happened here for the Brown Ranch piece. And whether you agree or disagree with it, the bottom line is that there's has been a feeling for a while that the level of trust with the housing authority, and again, is not where it needs to be. So this is the approach that has been recommended to move forward, is to have a group that is a decision-making group. That is the difference here between what happened before. Because before we had, for example, a couple people from city council who might say, I agree with this. And then they go back to council and it would come back and say, we disagree with this. The whole council. This group is a decision-making group. So the thought is that it will make decisions faster, more efficiently as it moves forward. And then as it develops those scenarios or those options, however many there are, maybe there's only one, maybe there's two, I don't know. As they do that, then that will come back as a recommendation to move forward, annexation agreement and all of that. So that's kind of where it sits. The process, it's not meant to slow down the process. But I understand your frustration because I have the same level of frustration with this. I don't like to be at 5 years out from an annexation and still thinking that, you know, we're years away from doing anything. But that's the thinking.
Yeah, as I said, Steve, this, you know, this seems very similar to, you know, only a smaller version to the first round Brown Ranch. We had the steering committee, very broad group. The housing authority is like, okay, we don't want to look like we're being too, we want to make sure we're inclusive. Steering committee came up with the plan. Then it was brought back to housing. The board really had very little comment or influence in the first plan. It was a steering committee, which was fine. We approved the high level. And then the BRAC process came up. The long and short of it is this.
I'm gonna interrupt you, but I do feel like it's really important for the new board members.
That's right.
For all of us to remind ourselves. The flaw of the steering committee was that there were zero boundaries. It was design your Disney World Dream Ranch to Brown Ranch.
Yes.
So like, and that was a mistake. To
Yes.
approach it in that way.
Okay, but I'm just saying, Steve, I think whatever any group comes up with, there has to be a process of going to a public annexation hearing, similar to how Bryn Gray did. And it's going to be determined by the community and city council. And I am just not seeing, to me, this just seems, as I said, it seems like an additional process. I think one of the concerns with the community and the housing authority is that we haven't, during the election, we heard very, very clear from the community, smaller plan. less density. We wanted, more, tighter, tighter pro forma. Know what's gonna cost the community. We heard that very clearly. And I think there was confusion during the DST process. The community was saying, housing authority is not doing anything. Are you still working on the old plan? Which was no. And to me, this just seems like we're just setting up a new separate committee. It's gonna have to go through the same process. I just don't see, in my opinion.
All I can tell you is, and then, we can talk about this for 5 days as well, easily. So I would just say this, the assumption of the governance committee that is being put together and finalized is that they will create scenarios, options to move forward on a smaller Brown Ranch annexation.
I mean, I can tell you what I've talked to the consultant about. And it sounds an awful lot like a steering committee to me. And that's what it is. And what that steering committee comes up with will be interesting. I mean, the last steering committee did not involve the city for whatever reasons, only who knows. It didn't, city did not want to participate. There are other issues, but I think we can sit down and we can talk about them. And we decide what quote governance structure means. But I mean, what I told Kale is, and Brad actually, was, it sounds an awful lot like a steering committee. Let's figure out what it is we want to build, because I don't want to be here a year from now when we're still talking about how we make decisions.
Sonia has her hand up, so,
I couldn't agree.
And then Scott.
and then Scott.
Yeah, I am really struggling with this. One city council member, one county commissioner, or maybe even a county staffer on a committee is not a decision-making body. Like, that doesn't work for us. We don't operate that way, and I don't think the city does either. So I'm confused by that. And I also agree with, I believe that was Lou, who said it does sound like a steering committee. And I guess my question is, and maybe this is the gorilla in the room that just needs to be said out loud. My colleagues at the city continue to use a word that starts with T about what the problem is here, that the community thinks a certain way about the housing authority. And I think that just reinforces the negative that we're all trying to get through and get beyond. And so my question is, why don't we just empower the housing authority to do good work with our support? Why don't we just empower the housing authority to be a subcommittee of the Yampa Valley Housing Authority, to be this steering committee for the project? I mean, is that out of consideration? I mean, I just heard Steve, you say that this was being put together and finalized, but I mean, doesn't the county have to agree to this governance structure if we're a part of it?
Well, sure. I think that's part of why I'm saying it's not finalized yet. But the notion is that the city would be the council would be represented, that county would be represented, that the housing authority would be represented, and probably that the resident or the community would have some representation. That's where I am on that. I have not seen a finalized group of people beyond that. If we have 2 city council members, we appointed those at our retreat earlier this year. Those were the 2 that we appointed, Councilors Gary and Barnes, to be our representatives. That's all I have at this point in time around the makeup of that committee, because I think it has to be agreed between the county and the city, because they're both in the IGA.
Yeah, I can just clarify just quickly that I just pulled who I saw on the calendar invitation for the first meeting. So that's all I'm going off of in terms of the membership.
Understood.
Scott, did you have a?
Yeah, I kind of have like a general comment about it, or a question about the governance of it. I think the thing that like confuses me a little bit is that we're talking about like just making decisions, right? And then acting like those decisions are just gonna be implemented. But if there's no developer at the table to be in the room to be talking about economic viability, then what's the point of this?
I think part of this is, it's in there somewhere, of understanding what technical side of this is all about. What are the resources you need? And whether they're on the committee or they're just kind of like added on and off as needed for pieces of work. But I would agree with you that there has to be representation from the development community, or else, you know.
Right, so it kind of, yeah,
Lou, I would just say,
all that term, but
just on the interview this morning, that the first three pieces of it, or the first 3-hour meetings, are just to get the governance structure together. And then the governance board would then bring in the technical experts that you're talking about. So just the way I understand.
Well, and the first piece is getting the governance board together.
Well, I'm hearing some, I guess it's not very well defined yet. And there's some amount of skepticism. I honestly think that housing authority needs to decide whether we want to play ball or not with this governance structure concept. And because I think it's a fundamental question, like, do we think that this is the right path forward? And I think ultimately the board's going to have to make a decision, like, yes, we want to engage in this, and yes, we want to do this, or no, thank you, we don't.
But I don't think we can come to that decision today.
I'm not suggesting we do. I think it's a
And-
future discussion point.
And that's,
Action.
the point is, we're gonna have a meeting in 2 weeks, or whatever it is. And then we'll see where we are and what we're all talking about. I don't think it's all that complex, actually.
Michael Ann, you had your hand up.
I don't know that I'm really ready to comment on if I think the governance structure is a good idea, or if Sonia's idea of empowering the housing authority to do good work is the right way to go, or if it's something else entirely. I guess I just want to share an observation that there's still several questions that maybe we had the expectation would have been answered through the phase 1 of the DST, of like, what with specificity does the community want, and what does that cost? To say that it's smaller, it's a smaller annexation, smaller, less density, like, there's 1,000 more details behind all of that the DST didn't answer, and this governance structure is not going to answer. And I guess I'm just saying this to the board, to Jason's question of, do we want to play ball or not? We need to ask ourselves, is the outcome of this structure going to have the answers to those, so that we can make some progress? And to Scott's point about having a developer at the table, I mean, the only one that can comment on the Bryn Gray process and how that went. It started with having every single one of those answers and making a proposal based on those. The very first question that was answered with Bryn Gray was, how much water does the city have and how many units can that support? And then the developer put forth a proposal, and the community was able to react to that. We don't have a developer at the table to put together said proposal this round. So in absence of that, we need to have those answers from the community. And they can't be, we already know what some of the world of options, we already know which ones they don't want, because they voted on those 2 Novembers ago. But there's several other scenarios that haven't been asked. And so I guess what I'm trying to offer is this process going to be putting together scenarios based on this Brown Ranch governance group's idea of what the scenarios should be, or based on feedback from the community?
And I'm going to suggest that we continue this discussion. I know Catherine had approached me and said, we as a board need to discuss this. It sounds like this is the beginning of a discussion. And I'm concerned that if we don't move this forward to another agenda or another meeting, that we won't hit some of the other things that we have to do. So I'm going to suggest that we continue this discussion. And that doesn't mean that we won't participate, but we reserve the right to continue the discussion, Steve, at our next board meeting.
Well, let me just say one final thing. this whole governance process, Michael, all of those questions you asked need to be answered by that process. And so they'll have their first meeting. They'll come back with some process, if you will, hate to use the word, recommendations. There's only supposed to be 2 or 3 of these meetings to set this up. It's not a long-term process. So let's see what happens. And maybe all of your concerns and my concerns too will be answered. And if they aren't, I'm sure we will have a very vigorous dialogue about it. Because this is not just about pushing the shovel down the road, putting it in the ground. And nobody is more motivated to do that than I am. I mean, I just feel every day that goes by when we don't do anything, it's a lot. We're losing more and more people every day, so.
I'll add one comment to adding on to Michael's. Just think the knowledge we would have right now if we maybe didn't have all these, I don't know what to call these meetings, whatever they are, and instead actually had the city staff or city teams putting their great talent to just putting together what Michael Ann just said. Here are the amount of units that we can absorb for water and all the city other structures. If we just spent the first time getting that number together, so we knew what it was, and then we could decide how we move forward. I just think that's more business model and it's more efficient. I think until we know that number, everything else is not handled efficiently. So I support what Michael Ann was saying. She worked with the developer. Let's get those data points first and then move forward on and then decide how we're going to move forward.
Kathy, could I respectfully request that the board at the next meeting that this is discussed decide whether or not it is strategic for the housing authority to participate? I think Jason brought up a good point.
Absolutely. As I said, this is the beginning of a discussion, not the end of the discussion. So it will be on the next board meeting.
Just a clarification, who is the potential for people or spots to be on this board? Who in this board, this governance board?
There was a
I
slide.
know I saw that, but then you mentioned a couple of council people. It's not,
Gail and Dave.
I just pulled it up again.
I see that.
And again, subject
Okay.
to change.
Thanks, good. So I was wondering.
It's the first time I've seen that.
Yeah, I thought there were gonna be DST people on it.
Believe you me, I'm gonna follow up on that.
All right.
Then again, DST, why not community people? If you're gonna form a whole new board, let's open it up. A new housing authority board, why not?
Moving on.
Moving on. Our next,
Right, before we launch into
Yes.
this topic, can you just give us like some wayfinding on time stamping, what time we're gonna be getting out of the meeting? Are we going to go past 2? What are the time amounts all added to the remaining topics?
Yes, we're gonna be after 2. Based on this, maybe 20 minutes.
Be here at 3.
all right. Let's move on.
Okay, so circling back in the agenda, items 6 and 7, they're both identified as action items. However, at the moment, there is not actually any action that needs to be taken by the board. But so we wanted to use this as an opportunity to just kind of get you up to speed as to where things stand with Cottonwood. So Michael Ann, were you gonna present sales data stuff or do you need me to?
The board would like an update, I'm happy to do so.
Okay, I'll give you a moment to prepare for that. While I'm talking about other stuff. Sorry to put you on the spot. Just kind of following up on a couple of items, particularly our last board meeting, we approved this unanimous consent document. That document has facilitated the creation of a $4 million developer line of credit that's gone into the project that is now paying for construction related costs. So great news, that action by the board and subsequent action by our partners has the project in a place where all of the costs are currently being paid. Secondly, we had on here and we've talked about in many meetings, the global agreement. And we've been sort of picking at it by little bits. This unanimous consent document handled the $4 million line of credit. So there's still a few loose ends that need to be wrapped up. And so I just want to forecast for you that there will be some document, some version of a global agreement document that will be coming to tie up loose ends. Those are what's the ongoing relationship with phase two, what happens with phase two kind of construction or documents related to design and any engineering that's been done. We talked a little bit about surety that is actually in that document, some of the action that you already took today. And then HOA startup. So those are a few of the loose items that will get buttoned up in that global agreement document. Hoping that that all comes together relatively soon. There's a chance that we may need to have a special meeting in the coming weeks to approve that global agreement document that kind of ties up all of the remaining items. Rich, did I miss any loose end items?
It's just a modest clarification that the 4 million is paying construction costs through the current payment request.
Yes, thank you.
Through the,
Not beyond,
I'm sorry, through the what?
through the current payment request number 20.
That is an important clarification. Thank you, Mark. Michael, can I cue you up to talk about sales?
Sure. Is Lala online, just in case I missed everything?
She's not. I can fill in for her. I've got all the information as well. So if you want, I can do it. I just wanted to defer to you.
So maybe I would like to listen. All right. I just wanted to ask the Alyssa and Araceli for just an update, just so everyone can have current status of where the sales effort is at. Just to date, globally, we've had 445 people express some level of interest in the Cottonwoods. Whether they're eligible or not relevant for that particular point. Most of them were eligible based on self-reporting. 41 people have qualification letters in hand, meaning 41 people can enter the deed restriction or enter the lottery with their golden ticket. There's 19 households that are in document review, another 25 who are incomplete, so they're needing to fill things in. And then additional 13 inquiries recently asking for an invitation to apply. So trying to figure out where they fall in the 3 categories of approved, document review, or incomplete. Would you add anything to that?
I think the only other thing is that of the qualified people, they tend to skew more towards the 100 and 120% AMI range. And so we're continuing to sort of move people through the process, going from A, they're interested to B, they get invited to fill out the actual application, and then moving them through either what if called incompletion or document correction or whatever that is, to the point that they're ready to go. But what we've got at the moment is, we're expecting 60+ people to be in the sort of approved group when we launch the first lottery. That's probably the minimum amount of people that we will have. And so we're going to continue to funnel people through that process. And as things become more tangible, we're getting more people interested. As evidenced by, we just had 13 more people.
Really quick, when you say 60 people, do you mean in the 100% AMI lottery or the total lottery for building 2?
In all income categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the first building.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone will be able to apply for the first building. We can't obviously house 60 households there. thankfully, we have a second building coming on board
Yeah.
shortly thereafter. So if there's folks that don't win the lottery for building
What?
2,
Yeah.
which is the first one to be delivered, very confusing, then they can also apply for building 2. Sorry,
How many-
the second building 1.
How many units are in the first lottery?
42. 11?
Well, the first building is
43.
is 43.
43.
And I think there's 10 or 11 100% units in that building. So we're starting with the lowest AMI tier, and then we're moving up because people can buy up. But they cannot qualify at a higher income for a lower AMI unit.
And we're also in the process of scheduling open houses. And that we're working with Houseman, and we've bought hard hats for everybody, and do we have dates set?
Next Thursday, is gonna be our first kind of 2-hour window for walkthroughs. And then, we'll do the following Saturday, the 28th of February, from 9 to 11. And then, basically, we've gotten a commitment from Houseman to kind of do these 2-hour windows on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoons, and then every other Saturday, so.
We've discussed those being, the intended audience being both prospective buyers and the community.
Correct.
Yeah, so I want to make that clear. We don't want the first opportunities to view these units to be all the board members. We love you guys, but we want the people who are intending to move into those places to be even more motivated to move into them by seeing them. And so as we actually will have to be like, bringing people in at like 10 at a time, and they will have to go, have to have PPE, they will have to sign a waiver, they will have to check in with the construction trailer because it's an active construction site. So it's going to be fairly heavily managed. If we have some open slots, we'll try to bring you guys in, but our first and foremost priority are currently approved buyers and prospective buyers, because we really want to hype up that. And I know that you guys as ambassadors to the community will also want to put your eyes on it, but we're going to just give our preference to those folks that have gone through the hard work of applying for these units first.
People are reserving times.
Correct.
Okay, good.
And the other, once we obtain the TCO, the intent is to move Alyssa and Araceli over there and actually, I'm going to use the term office temporarily over there so they can meet with potential buyers and do it will not be an active construction site once it's a TCO. So we intend to be on site with our sales staff. All right, any other questions on the marketing? All right,
All right. That is the end of our regular open session items. So next would be to enter into the executive session.
all right. So I'm going to ask that the staff, with the exception of Jason and Elliot, we're going to move into executive session. So if you'll change the tape or do what you need to do, Sarah?
It's not Sarah that does that.
Yeah.
Have a good weekend.
I just need the motion.
And then Kathy, you need to read your statement.
Let me
Are you
read.
gonna send me a new link as well for that?
No,